Welcome to Unholy Health, episode 17.
Yes, we're nearly at 20, which I don't know how we haven't even got to 20, considering I feel like we've been doing this for ages now.
It's been more than a year, I'm pretty sure. But hey, every great thing starts somewhere. Today we're talking about belief.
Oh, good.
Belief in the sense of religion, but also why we as humans need things to believe in, such as tarot card readings or our God or health routines or morning rituals, all of these sorts of things. So that's where we're starting today. And so the first question I have is, do you think there's need to believe in things like something mystical or some higher power, or believe in things generally? And it may be any sort of mystical things. Like people are superstitious, or they believe in God, or they believe that the latest health trend is going to be the answer to all their problems, or they believe that some individual is going to solve all their problems, or some course. Like there's always a thing that people have this need to believe in things. Do you think that's innate? Like is it part of human brain, or is it a cultural thing, do you think?
So I have all sorts of weird beliefs. Like I love my clairvoyance. I've got crystals all over the house. I sage the house. I journal. I manifest, all that stuff. I didn't get into that until I was like 19. Like I found that interest because I like the element of control it gives me in my life. Like I feel like by being able to manifest and cleanse things and believe in that, it gives me some sort of control over the world, which when you think about it, gets really freaky to think about. If you think too hard about actually being human and how the world functions and how things just kind of happen to certain people, that freaks me out. So giving me something that I feel like gives me a bit of control over that is how I got into it.
How does it give you a sense of control? You mean do you have like journaling, or is it manifesting or visualizing?
I got into it through, visualization. So I started to believe that if I visualize bad things happening, bad things will happen. And that's why some people are like, oh, I just have the worst luck in life, because they have this belief that bad things happen to them. Which I believe in. And so if I convince myself that I can manifest and visualize my life, good things happening, even when bad things happen, I'm like, I can get control of this situation. And then this is where I think some people get stuck. It's not like you visualize and then you go and do all the things that make your life terrible. You visualize and you're like, right, I need to put the building blocks in place so that thing I've manifested can eventuate.
And that makes you feel like you're in control, like things are going to go your way.
Yeah, like I can kind of write my life. I can draw it like a picture.
Yeah. There was, and every time I quote a study, I can never tell you the origin, but I think there's more than one study about taking people who play sports, let's say, for example, basketball, and they take one group and they do nothing for weeks. Another group actually practices the sport, and the third group visualizes just doing the sport. And then I think they also did like a fourth group where like they practice and visualize. But obviously the group who didn't practice at all, they don't get better. But the surprising thing or not is that the group who just visualized playing the sport also improved.
Yeah, it doesn't shock me.
I mean, there's a real rehearsing things in your mind makes you better at them. So I guess if you're visualizing something, then it's going to help you make it happen, right?
And I think there are so many actors that we see that you'll watch in a movie and you're like, they can't act to save their life. And singers that are really famous that probably don't have the best voice. But I think because they believe they can do it and they keep putting themselves in the situations because they 100% believe they can do this and it is something they are good at, eventually it just happens for them. Whereas if you sit there and you think you can't do something, you're never going to put yourself in the position to be able to do it. So no matter how good you are, like I think at some point you've got to kind of pave your own path. And I think the people that do that are the ones that believe, regardless of if they are the best or not, they're going to be one of the best and they're going to keep doing whatever they have to do to get there.
Right. So the fake it till you make it.
Literally exactly fake it till you make it. And that's why the saying works, because it's like they're going to do that, and they're going to do whatever they have to do, and they're going to spend as long as it's going to take, but they're going to get there because that's where they believe they should be.
Yeah. And it's also the power of belief. Like, does that mean that you're, if you feel good about yourself by taking your $40 ice from Air One, does that mean you might as well?
The one, like I said, the common denominator with Air One is all of the very successful it girls all go to Air One. And I think that is part of that belief because they are one of the biggest figures in pop culture. They're going to go to Air One and that's what they're going to do. And that's part of their brand. So they keep having this belief that they are one of these it girls and it ends up happening. I think a lot of what people do isn't because they necessarily believe that it's any benefit to them, but I think it helps them believe in this person that they want to be and create this kind of image of themselves to project to the world, which then puts them on the path that they want to be on. I think it's all about projection, all about visualization, and all about putting yourself in a position that allows you to actually embody this person you're visualizing and bring it to reality.
Right. Does that mean then that whole cult of wellness is a religion of a kind in its own right?
I mean, even religion, like no one really knows if there is a heaven or a hell, but people will do what they have to do in life and visualize themselves getting into heaven. And that's their belief. And they do it so that they can eventually get to this place where they want to get to. Like, I think everything when it comes to religion or beliefs is about achieving something in some way, whether it's getting into some place or becoming famous, whatever it is.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm an atheist, but I am 100% certain that if I went skydiving one time and my parachute didn't open, I would be praying to God. Like, it's
exactly. As it last, no matter what, that last ditch attempt, you're like, okay, now I really need some help here.
Yeah, appeal to some higher power, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's where I think it's like, I think we're getting better and better now at people starting to kind of not better at it, but I don't know how to put it. I think we used to make life very simple. Like you go to work, you do your job, you come home, you have your kids, all that kind of stuff. You die, starts again. And people want more than that from life now. And I think we're getting to my generation, everyone wants to be, less people want to have kids than ever. Everyone just wants to be bigger than life and everyone wants to be famous. And like that's such a thing of my generation. And I think that's where why all of a sudden manifestation and visualization has become such a popular thing because it gives people this way of believing that there's a higher power that's going to help them get there.
Do you find that's just everyone is so Gen Z, right? They'd rather be famous than have a family, or is that too reductivist?
I mean, I can only say from the kind of people that I have in my life, but none of my school friends that I'm still in contact with want to have a family. No one around me that I know wants to have a family. And they all either want to have small businesses or they want to have success in the entertainment industry, or none of them want to work standard 9 to 5s either, which I get. I couldn't think of anything worse than working like a boring 9 to 5 where that's kind of my life forever. I think work is so much different now in the way that work can look like so many different things and you actually can do a job that you love versus just working to work.
Why do you think that? Why has it changed? Like, why is it just a generational thing?
I think it all has to do with social media. I've always said that if you wanted to be in the entertainment industry, you had to be an actor or a singer. Now you can be TikTok famous and that can get you into places like Addison Rae. She's now a legitimate singer. And that came from posting little 10-second dances on TikTok. So I think people now go, it's more accessible than ever and you don't have to be, a Nepo baby in Hollywood to be in the entertainment industry.
Or is that really true though? Like, does it really level the playing field?
I have always said I think it's easier and harder. Easier in the sense that you don't just have to be in Hollywood to get famous, but at the same time, all of a sudden, the pool of people trying to be famous is bigger than ever because everyone with an iPhone can set their iPhone up and try and get into that market. So you're competing with more people than ever. So I think it goes both ways. Yes, it's more accessible, but I think it's also more competitive.
I've always gone the opposite. And this is why, for the longest time, refused to have my face even on the podcast, is because something in my brain, I don't want to try and play that game, I guess. But of course, eventually just realized that trying not to play that game was playing the game in itself. So
Yeah, exactly. I think, but that's a lot of people that probably are the one generation above me, millennial. They don't want to be famous. Like anyone I speak to, even my friends that I have that are older than me, they don't want that. There is something about my particular generation now with social media that fame just seems so enticing.
yeah, that's super interesting. Like my brother and sister are a fair bit older, and I actually I identify with Gen X.
I don't even know what the generations are. Is it Millennial XZ or Z Millennial X?
X is before millennial.
Yep.
There was, I think they at one point they said there was a Y. I think that's disappeared. I think now it's just millennial and Z. But so Gen X was quite the opposite. They actively did not want to be famous. Like most of the rock stars that I grew up with, and this is like I don't know if you even know what grunge music is, but grunge music back in the day, and you had people like most of the stuff, like Kurt Cobain, like Nirvana, Soundgarden, all these bands, and I mean, they all didn't really want to be famous, and that was one thing. But also, most of them ended up killing themselves, sadly. But it's a very different world, I guess. And I don't know.
Yeah, well, I grew up in the generation of Lindsay Lohan, Paris Hilton, the Kardashians, where people will do anything to get famous.
Yeah, and they did, and they did.
And that's why I find it interesting that it's also my generation that seems to be so obsessed with this kind of spirituality path and journal. Like everyone sells a journal now. Like everyone that is in their mid-20s and wants to sell a product sells a manifestation journal because they just know that it's what everyone wants to do because everyone wants to live this life that seems bigger and more amazing than anything else. And they think, well, I'm going to also manifest it. And on TikTok, all I constantly see is like different updated, ways to manifest and things that are like the 333 method and all these different kind of rituals you can do to make manifesting even better. So I just find that interesting that I think the same generation obsessed with fame is also the same generation that are obsessed with spirituality.
And is the fame your for someone like that in that generation? Is the fame their brush with God? Like, is that their spirituality? The fact that they are on TikTok, or they get views, or like is it a spiritual thing?
The one thing I actually find interesting, I'm seeing more and more, is a lot of the big influencers are turning to God and actually getting baptized and entering that phase of their life. I've seen it a lot. I'm pretty sure the Pauls are. I know a few of our Australian influencers are. A few of the big American ones are. They're all becoming very pro-religion after that not being their brand at all initially. So I don't know what the connection with that is, but that's something I'm noticing heaps recently.
Any specific religion, or
I know nothing about religion, but all God, getting baptized.
let's just believe in God? Yeah, I find the reason I ask the question is that this, we always think everything is new, but nothing's new. There's been countless sort of spiritualism or mysticism movements like since the dawn of mankind. It's something that we do repeatedly. And the interesting one I just wanted to touch on briefly, there was Gurdjieff and Uspensky. Maybe we'll put that in the description for people who want to look them up. But this was this mysticism they did like early 20th century stuff. And this is not going to be super accurate. It's going to be a bit hand wavy. But the idea was that everyone's kind of walking around not really awake. Like you're half asleep. Like you're not really operating. You're not really living most of the time. And to get a spiritual awakening, you had to do certain things to like shock you out of it. And interestingly, the sorts of things they would do, dance was in there, but fasting, physical exhaustion, so like high intensity exercise, like cold exposure, all of these things, and they were to do them to trigger this like higher sense of thinking, like to make you more spiritually enlightened. But it's interesting that it's like it's the biohacking stuff. They were doing the same things, but they weren't doing them under this guise of you will be healthier and live longer. They were doing them under the guise of you will be closer to God or closer to, the spiritual in some way.
That doesn't surprise me either, because as much as I say so much of the spirituality I see on TikTok is people manifesting like money and fame and all that stuff, there is a part of social media and TikTok, I call spiritual talk, that people are legitimately looking to operate at a higher frequency or have a spiritual awakening. And there was a massive, maybe a couple years ago, ayahuasca was the whole thing. Everyone was wanting to go and do ayahuasca to have that out of body experience, to kind of have that awakening. So I do think there is that element, but I think that's more an indication of how lost I think a lot of people feel at the moment. Like, I think there's a lot of people that, and it's always been a thing of kind of Gen Zs comparing themselves, say their grandparents or something, where houses were so cheap and, life seemed a lot easier in a lot of ways, and people feel so at loss that they kind of look for something bigger and greater than them to give them direction in life. And that's where I think that spiritual direction is kind of where they go with that.
And why are they missing? Why are they missing something from their lives? Like, why? How? What do they feel like they're missing?
I think it's lack of purpose. And the one thing that I've always been grateful for with my horses, is that's always been something fulfilling and purposeful in my life. But I know after school, especially, some of my friends that went into uni, they felt so lost. They were doing a degree they didn't want to do. They were renting and they were going, how am I ever going to afford to buy a house, especially in Melbourne? Life just seemed scary. So I think that's another reason people turn to spirituality, because it's not going to hurt to try and believe in something else and potentially hand yourself over to the universe and say whatever's meant to be will be.
That just seems, and I know we all do it, but it seems like the worst possible strategy for anything. Because yeah, sure, there's things you can't change, right? So if I fall off a building and I'm free falling through the air, then my fate is in the hands of the universe, probably. Although I have done a skydiving course and they do teach you, if both your parachutes are screwed, they do teach you there's things you can do while you're in the air to reduce the risk of a fatality.
What are you're free falling from the sky. How can you reduce the risk? Curl up in a ball and hope that you land on the fattest part of your body.
It's somewhat counterintuitive. You want to try and land on something that's going to break your fall.
Oh, yeah. It's like in the cartoons when they're falling from something and they land in a tree and they hit every branch on the way down and they survive because they fell in a giant tree. Yeah.
Yeah, they do tell you to try and land on a tree, on a roof too, surprisingly.
I know, that sounds like, if it was a roof that was one of those triangle roofs, that just sounds like it's going to potentially be an even more painful death than laying on the ground.
At least you hit it and it'd break. Like it'll give. You might lose a leg or something, but if you just hit firm, like landing in some scrub or something is slightly helpful. But if you just land straight on solid earth, but yeah. Anyway, so, but for anything else, if you just give up yourself to the universe, in some sense, you're abdicating your responsibility as a human being, right? Like there's fate is what you make it. Like you decide what you do with your life. If you just follow what the tarot card readers say, and give yourself up to that, okay, I just, like if I go to a clairvoyant and I say, tell me what's going to happen, right? And then they tell me what's going to happen. All I've done is just removed myself from my life, because I don't have to make choices, and I can make awful choices and just be like, well, but that's what the clairvoyant said was going to happen. It was not my fault, right?
Yeah. Which I have definitely done. I've just, my clairvoyant said to do this, so I'm going to go do that. I think it's interesting. I think it depends as well how logical of a person you are. So if you find comfort in logic and like that, being like, well, no, that giving up to the universe doesn't help anything, then that's great. But I think there's a lot of people that logical side of their brain is what causes them extreme amounts of anxiety. So they end up doing worse things because they start to almost get a bit manic. So I think giving themselves up a bit and being like, I'm going to do what I can do, but the rest is in the hands of the universe, I think is a way to try and take away the element of lack of control that can come with it. I think it depends completely on how logical of a person you are or not. Like, I'm not really a numbers person at all. I'm no good with any of that sort of stuff. So if I was to try and obsess with that sort of side of life, I'd be a mess. So that's why I'm better off being like, I'll do what I can do, and the rest of it.
Well, for sure, you have to choose things that you're gonna like, where you're gonna put your effort and where you're not. And in the places that you choose not to put your effort, absolutely, you just have to leave that up to the universe, because what else can you do, right?
I think that's probably a better sum up of what people are actually doing. I think a lot of people that are getting into spirituality, they wouldn't go off to, go study Buddhism for a year. Like, they're not actually into spirituality, but it's an element of them basically saying, I'm going to do what I can control and I'm not going to do what I can't control, but then kind of wrapping it up in a fancy bow, and sometimes also giving themselves something to do. A lot of the time I see spirituality just being something to do. Like, I love astrology, and I got into that purely because I was bored, found it fascinating. Like, I think a lot of people make that their personality, because I think we lack so much human contact now. And that's why people love TikTok and love finding their niche online. So if they're into spirituality, they can kind of find their people and their place. And it gives them something to kind of become them.
Yeah, interesting.
Which I guess that's what religion in general is. Like, people going to church and you congregate with a group of people that have the same beliefs as you, that relate to you, and
creates a community for you.
Yeah, I think a lot of religion and beliefs ends up being about community.
Yeah. It's humans are biological and then also social and then intellectual. Like, there's those three things, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Question for you, like, obviously you love your horses and everything about them, like equestrian and all that stuff. You have the successful TikTok account around that. Does it ever feel, because that's how people see you, and that's a big part of your life, but it's not all of it. Does it difficult to balance that, like, expectation of you TikTok persona versus the full person, or not so much?
I think the irony, and I love social media and I love that that's my career, but the irony of social media, and I think any sort of fame, whether you're actually famous or you're kind of TikTok known, is you get that and you realize it's not all fun and games. Like, the last month I've had people finding my address and like sending death threats and all this stuff over, I think I said brushes were expensive. Like, these $400 horse brushes were expensive. And the people that use those brushes were not happy. So those kind of things you do start to kind of go, oh God, how do you balance this and that? And the one thing that I've always said that I would never ever do is, I've been doing the social media managing and strategy for the last, 4 years now. I'll never stop doing it, and I will never monetize my social media, because I never want to get to the point where if I wanted to quit that one day, I lose my source of income. That has always been my biggest thing. If that ever gets too much, I want to literally be able to just close the app and never look at it again and just carry on my merry way. A lot of people, I think, make that their life so they can't separate it. And then they go, oh my God, what am I going to do? And then also when they start to get cancelled, they panic even more. There's just this element of panic that comes with something as fragile as social media being what pays your bills.
Well, I mean, every career is fragile, and you always get fired, right?
Yeah. But you can go and do it again. Like, say you got fired from your job, you can go and get another job. Social media, it's literally like, it's you. Like, if you yourself get fired off the internet, you can't just go to a new internet. That's it. It's done. There's one internet. You're done.
You get your 15 minutes of fame, and if you turn yourself into a villain, you've either got to roll with that or disappear, right?
And to credit, there's a lot of people that do roll with it, and they just become like the internet troll, and they just don't read comments, and they probably make more money than they ever were before they were the internet troll. But yeah, that's one of those things where it is, I think how you balance that can be tricky.
Interesting tidbit, I guess, before we move on, is there was a research project, I can't remember the name of the guy, but he made this thing called the God helmet. Put it on your head and it would stimulate, I think it was your prefrontal cortex or something like that, but it would stimulate your brain in a certain way that people who used it would have like spiritual experiences.
See, that I find bizarre because is there such thing as a spiritual experience, or I think spirituality is different for everyone?
I have, yeah. Well,
I don't know much about it, but they say it literally is like it happens a lot when you have ayahuasca, and literally like you go through this like hell in your mind and this torment and you die, and it's this ego death, and then you become this new person. But imagine if you were having a spiritual experience and it's like, are you going to have an awakening? Are you going to have an ego death? Are you going to find God? Like, what is a spiritual experience?
I would. I mean, this is if I'm being skeptical, I would say it's just another brain process. Like,
Yeah, I think that would be, if anything, like, have you heard of like spirit guides?
yeah, like the people who guide you through the astral plane or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, like my clairvoyant will always be like, your spirit guides have asked me to tell you this. I think a spiritual experience would probably be you talking to your spirit guides, but I don't think that would actually be your spirit guides. I think it would be like this kind of subconscious thing that goes on in your mind that then you just talk to a bit clearer. Something like you said, a part of your brain that you kind of push to the back and you don't really have anything to do with.
Yeah, well, they have also stuck probes in people's brains and given them like out of body experiences.
I think that's just called a lobotomy.
Like where, we're like, because when people die and they say they float above their body and they see it and then they go like towards a bright tunnel and stuff like that.
So much about spirituality, I feel like, just has to do with people being scared of death.
Which is,
Like, a lot of it just comes down to being scared of dying. And that's why we're so obsessed with what happens when we die.
and obsessed with not dying and following whatever Brian Johnson is saying this week.
He's been going hard on TikTok recently.
I've had a few chats with one of my friends about Brian Johnson. They're a big fan, and
Like a legitimate fan, or like a half watching, like it's some sort of entertainment show fan? Or would they do what he does?
well, they would like to do more of what he does, but yeah, they're a big fan, and I've been very much on the. I find it weird and creepy. So we had a long discussion about it, and I conceded that maybe if I talked to him in person, he would seem reasonable, but that I just find the whole social media presence that he has and him going on the Kardashians and all that stuff just makes it seem creepy and salesy and disingenuous to me.
That's what I've always said. If it was something that he was doing in private, that he was genuinely passionate about, fine. But I think it is all to sell that powdered vegetable supplement that he has. That's all it is.
Yeah. That's the end of episode 17 of Unholy Health, and we'll hear you next time.